Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan podcast. We are talking the penultimate episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier that aired on Disney Plus this week. And with me, my name's Jordan Wiegand, but with me today is, as always, Logan Stump.
For those listeners that don't know what penultimate means, it means the second before the last. So.
Thank you, English teacher Stump.
You're welcome.
And we also have our accountant, maybe Matt. Are you an accountant or a power broker?
I don't even know. I was just excited to learn what penultimate meant because I actually didn't know.
Oh, really? I use it all the time.
I'm not very good at. I'm not good at English. I would fail Logan's class. I'm pretty certain.
I'm convinced Jordan has like a word of the day calendar. There's some words he throws out sometimes that I don't. I'm like, what?
Do I?
Yeah, there's a couple words that you use a couple of times. It's usually in Twitter that I'm like, I got to go look that one up. I know what penultimate meant just because I've heard it before, but a couple words that you throw out there, I almost swear you have one of those terror calendars that has a word of the day.
I just have a vivacious vocabulary.
You guys are teaching me words. I'm very, very happy about that.
I don't even know if I used that right, but we're going to go ahead and talk some Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is an episode entitled Truth. It's episode 5 out of 6. That's why it's the penultimate. Aired April 16th on Disney Plus. This one was directed by Kerry Skoglund and written by Delan Musin. I don't know. I assume that's Musin, maybe. Musson. If I butchered that, who are we kidding? They're not listening. So let's go ahead and get to our description of the episode from Disney Plus. This is the official Disney Plus. They're very good at saying not a lot here on these summaries, synopsises, which is good. You don't want spoilers. It is John Walker faces consequences for his actions, and Sam and Bucky return to the U.S. Logan, we'll start with you as always. Your initial thoughts on episode 5, Truth.
Yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed it. It wasn't one of my favorites, but I still thought it presented some nice background, and it's kind of like that 4 or 5 leading up to the finale. It seems like the 5th one is always kind of like or that one before the last. It's just kind of setting up the tone for the following. I really like the ending. I thought that was well done. The beginning scene is awesome. Just kind of breaking that down. I know we'll get to that, but ultimately, I think that it was a nice episode to set up what's coming, and it kind of alluded to the fact that maybe there's some future beyond for a lot of these characters, because I think that that's something that people wanted to know, if some of these characters are going to continue their storyline.
Yeah, Matt, what's your initial thoughts here on Truth?
I liked it. I did enjoy the step back it took from the action portion of the show, and it kind of gave you a lot more of a deeper look into a lot of the characters, especially with Sam and Bucky and Isaiah, which I thought was fantastic and really important for the ending of the show, because I think they really did a great job setting up the last episode. So I feel like some people might not enjoy how little action-packed it was, especially compared to the first 4 episodes, but I think the importance of this episode was to set up not only the finale to be as big as possible, but also to set up future shows and movies and characters. It wasn't obviously the quickest moving episode, but I think watching it, you really saw a lot of importance in terms of the shield itself. It felt like that was one of the biggest characters in the episode, even though obviously it's not like a person. But I really enjoyed how much you saw Bucky and Sam. I think it felt like they're coming together. It's like they finally settled any type of issues they might have had with each other. It felt like it got settled completely on this episode.
When an object's given personal characteristics like of a human, it's called personification.
Yes, English teacher.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know these things. I didn't.
That's why I'm teaching you. I'm teaching the audience.
Okay, Logan. After the game you go to today, you can come over and I'll teach you how to make a balance sheet in accounting. Does that sound good?
Gross.
I actually thought this was going to go a whole different way where you're going to like threaten Logan or something. Like,
That's
you
what I
come over
thought.
here and I'll teach you something.
Well, if anything, if the second shot hits me later, I might ask Logan to come over to like give me some food or something, help me out.
My thoughts here is, a little slower of an episode, but really good for the character development. This was like a kind of reminded me, like you mentioned, Logan, of that penultimate. There's that word again. WandaVision episode where it was all like where we kind of saw, what led Wanda to that point and seeing her history through, her losing her parents and stuff like that. And that was kind of like the same way with this, but without really going backwards, right? What we kind of kept going forward. We get to see some moments where we're, fixing a boat, but also that is furthering all of the characters. And the episode title actually gets its name from the book Truth, Red, White, and Black, which was a Captain America run about Isaiah Bradley, which was interesting because I think this title actually works for multiple things in this episode when we talk about John Walker and him being on trial. I think this episode works for that as well. This title works for that as well. Truth. He even bends the truth when we get to it when he's talking to Lamar's family. So let's go ahead and get into it here. This picks up almost immediately after the end of the last episode. John is on the run, running away from after he just killed one of the Flag Smashers. And Sam and Bucky are trying to track him down. And we get to this nice abandoned factory type building, which kind of reminded me of what the end credit scene of Ant-Man, I think it is, and also the actual scene in Civil War, I think it is, where they track down Bucky, and they're in this abandoned warehouse. So I thought that was really, really interesting. But we kind of get this, moment where I think we really see. I think they did John really well in this part, actually, where he's kind of reflecting on what happened. And even when Sam and Bucky approach him, he's kind of standoffish at first, but it almost seems like they're talking him into it, right? They're almost talking him into it. It's when they use the words, hand over the shield, that he snaps and thinks, oh, this is all about the shield again. They're jealous, right? They're jealous of me. They're jealous of and that's when it becomes this whole, I am Captain America type thing. And this nice battle here where we get these two teaming up against John Walker. Logan, your thoughts here on this initial opening and the battle?
Yeah, I like that it continues in from the last episode. I like when episodes do that just because it feels like even though you've taken a week off, you're just kind of right back into the story. But you can kind of see that PTSD. And this show does a really nice job of all these subtle things that are happening and, in people and in society and kind of these, characteristics that people have that really just make them who they are. So they really focus on a nice characterization with each of these storylines, and this is no exception. I think that this setup, just him running through and he's kind of having these weird flashbacks. He's kind of stumbles around and is trying to figure out exactly what's going on. He's still pretty heated, but he's also a little lost and I think scared for a moment. And so I think that this scene really sets that up in that warehouse and just that kind of that dark place where they can kind of go and be alone and really hash it out. I was excited for this scene because I knew what was coming. I knew that this would be some kind of battle between the three of them. But I really like this scene and how it set it all up. And I love some of the stuff that happens because it just kind of shows what's happening with some of these characters. And as they're going forward into the episode, it sets up a lot of their storyline. And so, I really like this. And the guy that plays John Walker is just fantastic in the role that he's supposed to be playing. Now this kind of anti-hero, I guess, going into other shows that might be on docket for the rest of Disney Plus and Marvel. But yeah, I really like this scene.
Matt, your thoughts here on this battle between John Walker, Sam, and Bucky. Two super soldiers in this fight, and then just Sam Wilson.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with Logan, and I did enjoy that it goes right into pretty much right where the last episode ended. So you do feel that sense of, hey, we're picking up right where we left off. We don't have to really think about what happened with or wait to see what happened with the end of the episode and how they're reacting to it. And I mean, Logan pretty much hit the nail on the head with everything on it, and I had pretty much the same thoughts. You could just tell initially John's kind of just. It seems like there's just a sense of shock, a sense of fear, a sense of just he doesn't know what just happened, but he's also trying to save face at that point. And Bucky and Sam are like, hey, this isn't going to be good for you. Just kind of hand over the shield right now, and we'll try to figure something out, or you're either going to have to give it to us, or they're going to take it from you. Like, it just felt like a scenario where they're like, give us the shield, we're going to help you, we're going to somewhat help you out, almost to an extent, and try to figure out what can really be done. But at the same time, it was like, you're not going to probably like the results no matter what happens, because you're pretty much, I mean, it was out in public, and you killed a guy, and you're going to get in trouble. You're not going to probably be Captain America anymore. And so it was pretty much it went exactly how I think you would want it to go, with them getting the shield back from him, even though the fight pretty much took out Falcon's wings when he ripped him off. I was like, that's pretty crazy how strong that they are. But it was a good opening scene, and it did set the tone for pretty much what you were going to be looking at the whole episode, with Bucky and Sam having the shield, and what was going to happen with John Walker post his murderous rampage against that guy. So it was a really good opening scene for this episode.
Yeah, I really like Sam and Bucky didn't back down. They go over there, they get the shield, they put up one heck of a fight to get it. Like you said, his wings are Sam's wings are damaged. And then the government kind of steps in, right? The military steps in, feds step in, whatever you want to say here. And they, Sam takes the shield and goes home. Torres comes in here and, asks about what happened to the wingsuit, and, asks Sam if he wants to take the wingsuit, and he says, you can keep it. This is a reference, by the way, that we didn't pick up on in the first episode, but Torres, when Sam took over as Captain America in the 2015 Marvel runs of Captain America, Torres was took on the Falcon suit, and he became Falcon to Sam's Captain America. So this is a reference to that of, you can keep the suit. So we might even see Torres suit up in the next episode or sometime after the show ends. And then we get into, Bucky's going to find Zemo, and he's at the memorial at Sokovia that he mentioned, to Bucky and Sam like a few episodes ago, or the last episode. And, Bucky leads him to believe that he's going to kill him, but he hands him over to the Dora Milaje, and they take Zemo. Logan, is this the end of Zemo in the show, you think, or do we see him again?
Yeah, I think this is the end of him in this show. Obviously setting up, and I know you know more about what could possibly in the future for the Thunderbolts show that they're talked about. And so, yeah, I think this is the end for him here. I like this scene, though. I love when Bucky's pointing the gun at him, and he kind of just, Zemo's almost looking like he's accepted the fate that Bucky might end him.
He's probably ready to. I mean, he lost his whole family.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that he's like, I hope that the Winter Soldier in him just does kill me. Like, please shoot me. I don't really want to live anymore. It kind of seems like he's got nowhere to go and nowhere to be and somebody to be with. So the whole fact that Bucky drops the bullets and just that scene and that camera action of getting the bullets kind of bouncing off the ground, it's a really nice scene. But yeah, this is the end of Zemo for me.
Matt, your thoughts? Do you think this is the end of Zemo in the show?
Yeah, I think it was a good ending too, because I don't really know what he's. I couldn't really pick up what they said about where he was going or what he was doing. I for some reason just didn't understand.
They're taking him to the raft. So the raft
yeah,
is,
I was like,
it's what it sounded like she said. The raft is the prison that all of the Avengers were on at the end of Civil War when they broke up.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But to an extent, I felt like it was a just ending because, he did assist them, but at the same time, he was gonna have to go somewhere. To be fair, if it was a normal prison or if he had stayed in that area, it probably wouldn't have been good for him. So I think him going to the raft and them taking him to it to kind of just ensure that he doesn't get out again is to an extent probably best for Zemo as well. Because if anything, at least he probably gets to live the rest of his life. Where for some reason, I just don't think he would have gotten to if he had stayed where he was initially. Just with everything happening, I almost feel like John Walker would probably try to find him at that point and beat him up because he's clearly got some stuff going through in his head as well. But it just felt like a just ending, even though it's hard to say a just ending ends in prison. It's hard to say a just ending is going to a prison that's on like a remote island, but it felt like the proper way to end Zemo's storyline within the show and maybe possibly within the MCU, I guess. If we end up seeing him again, but it did feel pretty. He got to see the Sokovia memorial. He goes away. He's going to this prison, and it felt right. I like how they did it.
Yeah, I don't think it is the end of him in the MCU. I think it might be the end here. I actually, you know what? I'll take that back. I think we see him in an end credit scene next week. If I have to guess, I think they'll set up the Thunderbolts in that episode, I believe. We'll see, because the raft is where Thunderbolt Ross put the Avengers, like I said, at the end of Civil War. So he has some jurisdiction over it. He's the one that creates the Thunderbolts. So I feel like it could line up pretty well there. So we get to Walker, who is in front of a trial, I guess, right? Not a court-martial, but a trial. And he receives something called an other than honorable discharge, so not an honorable discharge, and is stripped of his role as Captain America. He tries to justify it. He actually loses his temper pretty much here. I'm not sure. His wife was probably like, dude, just shut up, because that guy, he when we look at it, he's trying to keep justifying it. Like, you don't know what it's like over there, all this stuff. I'm it because you made me this type of thing. And he just kept digging a hole even worse, didn't he, Logan?
Yeah. And then he just keeps getting angry and angrier. Like pounds the podium a couple times. Almost makes like open threats to just be like, hey, you know what? It feels like he's like, I'm not ready to relinquish this position, which ultimately I love these movies or these shows because it's like, don't the people see where this could be like, okay, we need to maybe lock him up a little bit, because I think the whole situation is going to get worse because he's out there free, and they're like, oh, we're not going to lock you up because you're so decorated as a war hero. But you could see such bad signs of what's going on. And do they know that he's taken the serum? Like, I don't feel like that they do know
I
that
don't
he's taken
know.
it.
I think so.
It wasn't very clear. I don't think they would know that unless he says, and it doesn't look like they ever interviewed Sam or Bucky about this, and they do know he took it. So, yeah, I'm not really sure.
He's got a little roid rage. They might think maybe he's taking some steroids.
Yeah. They're like, why don't you just go back to Mark McGuire and go chill out?
Thanks for not mentioning Sammy Sosa. I appreciate that.
Well, Mark McGuire's the first one that comes to my mind because of that Lonely Island Netflix video, The Bash Brothers.
Yeah.
Let's move on here. We're going to, he's out in the hallway talking with his wife. And we get the big cameo that people were talking about last week of who's going to appear. This is Julia Louis-Dreyfus from Seinfeld, Veep, The New Adventures of Old Christine, which actually has an MCU connection because her husband in that show was Clark Gregg, who played Coulson. So there you go. There's a connection. But she plays Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. And this is a comic book character. Not one I'm overly familiar with, but she first appeared in 1967. And people have described her as the anti-Nick Fury, or an evil Nick Fury. And apparently, according to Joanna Robinson of Vanity Fair, she was first supposed to appear as DeFontaine in Black Widow before COVID-19 delayed Black Widow. And that's why it felt like kind of a reveal. You know, you're going up from her legs to who she is. I feel like that's why. And we're not sure, they said. Robinson said it is unclear if she is still expected to appear in Black Widow. But you know who else is in Black Widow? Thunderbolt Ross. Where do you think this is going? Logan, I'm going to pitch it to you here. I think that this is going to be how they bring in the Thunderbolts. I think they'll recruit John Walker. I think they'll recruit Zemo. I think that she is working for Thunderbolt Ross or is somehow going to be part of that. And the reason why is, you know, like I said, they sent Zemo to the raft so Thunderbolt Ross can get there. He can get Zemo. He's going to bring in John Walker. He's going to create his own crew of people to take on these jobs. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's more like just assembling the cast of characters that'll be part of this squad, it's cool because I think that she does a nice job of kind of setting it up, and like the whole fact that they're just kind of like they pan up on her from her boots walking, and she's just kind of got that swagger to her that says that she's going to be assembling these bad cast of characters, and all these characters are, I mean, they've killed people, they've, you know, gone after people, they're looking for vengeance on the world, I guess, but also, you know, trying to do it in a way they try to please people. So I don't, it's really interesting. I think that it sets up a nice story arc for going forward and what she can provide. It'll be interesting to see if because I know that she's oftentimes jumped around a lot for different TV shows lately. So I wonder, you know, how much of a character or staple she'll be in the show, because I know that she's an actress, likes to jump around a lot, because I know she's been in a couple things where sometimes she's been there for 2 or 3 seasons or maybe a couple episodes. So I don't know exactly what they're playing with her, if she's going to be, you know, like a constant, or if she's just going to set this all up and then kind of like a Nick Fury situation where she kind of goes to the background of it. But yeah, no, I really like this setup and what the Thunderbolts can be. And Zemo leading the charge is always exciting, because I think that they've really developed his character so well that he needs to continue to be in this universe and really assemble as one of the main guys and staples of this new crew that they're assembling.
Matt, she says that, you know, the men in there know that John Walker did what's right. Is she you know, pumping John Walker up, you think, to make him think that he is right, or do the men really think that he did what's right, but they just can't go with him because of the optics of the videos of him killing a defenseless person overseas?
You know, yeah, she's definitely pumping him with even more steroids. But in this case, more of like a mental one. She knows what he's capable of, and to an extent, I feel like she knows based off of and I don't know how they would find it or anything, but she probably knows that he took it or has something, like he wouldn't have done the killing without the super serum, or, you know, she knows there's something different about him now, which obviously we won't really know how she knows or what's going on with that, but she's trying to do what she can to get him on her team. And I don't know a whole lot really about Thunderbolts, or I had to look it up here just actually a second ago just to see, because I was like, they must be like a criminal team or something, because none of these seem to be very good people. So I did have to look that up just to make sure I understood who they were. But she knows what he's capable of, and she wants to recruit him for it. Part of me thinks that for some reason I feel like this could be the end of his story in the show. He might end up appearing maybe a little because of that end credit scene. But it feels like they're setting him up specifically for future TV shows and movies, and that almost could have been the end of his story on the show. And it feels like that would actually be a good place to leave it, so that you don't have something just random parts of the last episode have him just kind of there with like maybe the little makeshift shield that you see in the end credit scene. So I think this could have been like the proper way to end his character on the show. And I think you're gonna see what you guys said, that it's something to do with her helping create or manipulate or anything to become the creator of this Thunderbolts team with Zemo and Thunderbolt Ross, and that's what she's doing. She's trying to get him to become a villain now, and she's saying all the right things. She's doing what the typical MCU villain feels like, someone who says the right things to make you think what you're doing, even though it's perpetually bad, but to an extent it makes you think you're doing it for the good of everybody, even if does that make sense? Like they always like Thanos, like he had like a point where it's like, I know what I'm doing is killing half the planet, but
it's good in the long run.
Good. Yeah. So like that's like the tip to me, that's the prototypical MCU villain. Say the right things that make it seem like what you did, even though it's bad, but in reality, you're actually helping more people because of that bad thing that you did. And I think John Walker is very much willing to eat it up, especially after everything that just happened.
Yeah, I think I think we will see him in the rest of this episode in the show. I think he will. I think everybody's gonna kind of collide in New York. At the end
see
here,
Jerry Seinfeld show up if Elaine is going to be in the show.
Yeah, could you imagine? Like oh man, that'd be great. He's like, what are all these people in costumes? What are they doing? Why are you here? Yeah,
I was actually really shocked. After the episode, Rachel was like, "Oh, she was the big cameo," and I was like, "Yeah, that's Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's from Seinfeld."
Yeah. She's in like a lot of stuff, yeah, but that's
or we get like Lisa Kudrow, I guess now needs to make an appearance.
Yes, she can be part of the Thunderbolts along with her. That'd be great. Yeah, she'll be in She-Hulk or something. Lisa Kudrow. Let's move on. So we get Walker is visiting the family of Lamar. And he tells them that the man who killed Lamar is the one that he killed, which is a lie, which I think goes with the title of Truth here in this episode, right? He kind of mentioned this a bit when he was facing Sam and Bucky, like, he was responsible for the death. So in his mind, like Matt just said, when some of these villains take a look at what they're doing, they justify it, right? So Logan, he's like justifying that killing Nico, the kid that he killed, is right because he was involved in the death of Lamar, even though he never actually did anything to Lamar. It was Carly that killed Lamar. And he lies to the family here of a guy who has stood by him. The mom even, I think, dropped some of that, he was always so proud of you, proud that he was your partner type of thing. And do you think this is what makes him have that drive of creating his own shield and trying to bring down Carly so he can actually look at them in the eye again? Or is he just so deluded at this point that he thinks that Nico was the one who killed Lamar?
No, that's a good point. I guess I didn't really think too much of that, but yeah, I think that, yeah, it definitely does. I think it's kind of, it's what a lot of your heroes do, or anti-heroes, or whoever. It's like avenged whatever has happened that's been really bad in their lives, and I think it's kind of that same thing. It's like that redemption for Bucky. It's redemption for John Walker. And it'll be interesting to see kind of like how they develop him. I know in the comics he's got moments where he's bad as the special agent, and then I know that in the films and in the TV shows, oftentimes they'll take maybe a character and kind of develop a more likable perspective of each of them, or really create a situation where you want to like somebody, kind of like a Carly, where you want to like her because she like you feel her pain, you empathize with her, but you're obviously not a bad person who's going to collect all these flag smashers to kill others as part of that redemption. So yeah, I guess I didn't really think of that, and just that whole interaction with the family, and I guess John's flashbacks, and because he is a war veteran, he's had bouts with PTSD, and oftentimes when people have that, that sense of just trying to get redemption on things that have hurt them. It seems like people that have PTSD really suffer from just trying to get that vengeance all the time.
Matt, your thoughts here on John Walker? Is he going after Carly, you think, here? I know you said that you think that he may not appear in the next episode, but what do you think about him lying to Lamar's family? Is it good for them to think that it was that justice has been served, or what?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It was one of my least favorite scenes of the episode, knowing that he was lying. That's why I do think for the family, they trust him because they've been together for so long in terms of John and Lamar. They're gonna trust whatever he says. But what I don't like is how it just felt like he wasn't. I don't even know the best way to describe it. It something didn't feel right with how he was saying it to him. It didn't feel like not natural. It didn't feel like just him being incredibly sorry for the right reasons. And I personally don't think he's actually going to go after Carly. I think he's actually more so likely to go after Sam and Bucky than anyone else. Because I almost find it to where I think he finds them taking the shield from him as a bigger deal than at this point than everything that happened with the flag smashers, because he's now going to look at them as like, I'm now a super soldier too. You took my shield away, and the shield is what made me Captain America, which is stupid because I don't think that should ever be like, that's not why Steve Rogers was Captain America. The shield helped, but Steve Rogers was Captain America for like tons of more reasons than just the shield.
Right.
I was just watching. I was like, this just feels like it almost felt like I think it was Lamar's sister that was in it. Did they say, like,
I think so. His sister
like,
or wife, she was shooting daggers at him, wasn't she?
Yeah, I was like, her looks made me think she didn't believe a single word that John was saying in terms of like, I killed the person who killed your son. It almost looked like she was looking at him like, you're using my brother, or my husband, or my brother and their son's death as an excuse to kill somebody who you guys kind of gotten into a fight with anyway, when to an extent, like, if they would have gone about it different ways, they don't really get into these fights with them, which they really weren't ready. They weren't prepared, those two, in terms of getting into it with these flag smashers, because they haven't been through all of that before. War is obviously a different, in this world, war and everything with the MCU.
I mean, Sam and Bucky's taking on aliens, right?
Yeah, like, so, like, I mean, Sam was in the military, but could Bucky go into the military? I don't think he could, but he could handle these like aliens and super soldiers. This is what he's good at. But it just felt like he wasn't being I don't know why the word's escaping me. I just keep thinking of natural,
sincere.
But like, yeah, like it just didn't feel like it was a proper talking to the parents and his sister about what happened. And he was using Lamar's death as an excuse for what he did, when it shouldn't have been that way in terms of how he's saying it. And I just didn't like it. I really think the sister clearly knows that he's lying about it. And you know what, though, for the parents, it's probably at a point, it's probably best for them, because they will feel like, hey, like, you avenged our son, like, he was your best friend, and he looked up to you, and you looked up to him, and you guys are brothers, and he would have done the same thing if something like this happened to you, and you got the guy who got my son. Like, they probably, for the parents, it was probably a good thing, but for John Walker's character, I felt like it wasn't. I think it made him more of a villain than he already was. I felt like that, like, if you had a bar in terms of like villain and hero, I felt like the way he explained everything to the parents raised the villain bar more, and it lowered the hero like opinion of him even less.
Yeah, I think so. I do think if he does appear in the next episode, I do think he'll be going after Carly. I think that he is so warped with I think he so wants to show America that he is Captain America that he is going to try to solve the dispute. I think he'll fight Sam and Bucky if they get in his way, but I do think that is his main focus at this point is I'm going to finish what I started type of thing. And I think that look, like you said, it could be good for the family, like the parents. But if the truth does come out, if somebody brings down Carly and then they go ahead and, state she was the one that killed Lamar and stuff, then he'll lose that trust of that important, Lamar's family. And I think that will, if that happens, while it might be good at the meantime, thinking they've, justice has been served, in the long run, it may completely devastate a relationship of a, important family to him. So then we kind of get the, Sam goes to Baltimore. Woohoo! Sees Isaiah Bradley again. We get the whole backstory of Isaiah Bradley and, discussing his past as a black super soldier. And we learn why he was imprisoned. In the second episode, I think it was, he states that they had, threw him in jail for his service. And you're like, why would they throw him in jail for his service? Well, it's because, these other soldiers were being experimented on, and he rescued these fellow soldiers. And for that, they were then thrown in jail. He also states that they'll never allow a black man to become Captain America and that no self-respecting black man should want to. And Sam, pretty much leaves after this and goes to Louisiana to help his sister fix the boat. But before that, before we get to that, Logan, your thoughts here on Bradley's story here and what you think Sam takes away from it.
Yeah, obviously the biggest thing is, and it's a hot topic right now in the States, as it is maybe across the world, just the fact of racism and systemic racism and the understanding that, it was because they were black that he basically takes the same path that Cap does in the first Avenger, where Cap goes in and rescues people, prisoner of war, and brings them back, and he's celebrated as a hero, whereas when a black man does it, he's seen as kind of like this villain that, and they run test subjects still on the people that had some serum.
Yeah, because they want to know why it worked on Isaiah and not anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. So they test him as a guinea pig, and the Korean War is right around that time, just before segregation really comes into. I mean, in the States, they're already starting to segregate places, and blacks aren't treated as equals, and so yeah, it does a nice job. It sets up like that whole dynamic and the fact that he's basically giving Sam the idea like, hey, you sure you want to be Captain America? Because they don't like us blacks as being somebody that they look up to as a hero. And I think that's really hits home for Sam, because the whole time, it goes all the way back from when they're trying to get that loan at the bank. I think it just deals with the fact that racism still does exist and people still have a prejudice against blacks and not really accepting them as heroes because they're not your typical white people that you see, which is what I think they try to do here. And it's really well done. I really like this scene, just because he goes, are you really sure that you want to be Captain America? Because they don't like us blacks as being Captain America, because he was just like Captain America. And I think that really gets to him, because he's basically the same person Steve was. He gets thrown into that because he's been denied, because of the color of his skin and just the basic rights that you have as a human.
And I like Sam, when he talks to Sarah later about how he says, like, he's not going to let Bradley's experiences ruin, what he thinks is right. And I think this is setting up him taking on the mantle of Cap, because as, the Contessa Val, DeFontaine said, the shield actually doesn't belong to the government, right? So this was Steve's shield, it is now Sam's shield. It is his to choose what is right. That nobody can stop him from being Captain America, right? Nobody can make him hand anything over like they did with John Walker because they bestowed that upon John Walker. At this point, though, it is back in Sam's possession, and he's able to decide. And Matt, we'll move to you here. It seems like Sam is thinking he can make that change in the world by being that positive, uh, you know, Captain America, showing a role model as we see his nephews playing with the shield. They have this idea that they can be Captain America, and he can show that by being Captain America. What's your thoughts on this Isaiah Bradley Sam conversation?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Is that I think the conversation, I think it was needed for Sam to hear, because I think that's what was going to help him decide what his decision was going to be with it. And I think he does want to prove, I think to an extent, he wants to prove everybody that he can be. I think that's what's going to make him want to prove to everybody he can be the next Cap, and that it's not going to be the same situation as it was before. And to be fair, he's also not a super soldier. So he doesn't have any of that super soldier serum. And he's going to be a completely different person than Steve Rogers was or Isaiah Wilson was. And he's going to show the world itself that none of that matters. Like, it's more about the person themselves than anything else. And then when you get to that part where he is starting to train, and you see his nephews with the shield and how they're reacting with it, it's almost like they're looking at it as like, oh my God, like this is Captain America's shield. And then they're looking at it as like, my uncle is becoming Captain America. Like, maybe they're not like thinking that completely, but he's like, this is what's happening. Like, and they're going to they already look up to him, but they're going to look up to him even more now. And I think that's where it was heading, was that this conversation was needed, not only for Sam to really get a sense as to the entire story, because he didn't know any of this before the show even started. Like, when you saw his reaction to everything that happened with Isaiah Wilson, you could see how much, like, it hurt him to not know that this ever occurred, to know Steve and know that this didn't happen, and how Bucky knew and Steve knew. But then he finally can hear the story and all the pain that Isaiah went through, and then it allows him to make that decision to know that, like, hey, this is my shield now, and I'm going to do I'm going to do what I want to do with it, and I'm going to change the world for the better. And I think that's the best part about the show, is that it really brought Sam from being Falcon. Like, you obviously, like in the Captain America movies, when you see Sam, like, I was always like, man, Sam's like one of the coolest characters. Like, he's just in the MCU universe, he's a normal guy, but like, he's still fighting alongside the Avengers. And I always enjoyed those characters, like the Hawkeye and Sam. And to an extent, like, I mean, Black Widow is the same way too. She's got some like incredible like ninja, like super like agent like abilities, but they all are still not, input into with crazy robotics or super soldier serum, or they're not like a wizard like Doctor Strange. But they're so cool to see like these characters who don't have that special ability, but they can still fight alongside and become an Avenger. And I just think, with everything that just happened, it was the motivation Sam needed to finally take on the mantle and know that he's going to do the right thing and take over the shield. And he finally learned that that's what he needs to do. Like, Steve was right. Like, Steve gave him the shield for a reason, and he's going to prove everyone that he's the next Captain America, and this was the right decision at this point.
Yeah, so then we get back to, Louisiana, right, where they're fixing up the boat. Bucky shows up. He's going to help them with the boat. He also flirts a bit with Sarah. Sarah flirts a little bit with him. I thought that was really nice.
That was a funny scene. Like, just don't flirt with my sister.
We get Bucky, who asked the Wakandans, the Dora Milaje, for one last favor. Presents a briefcase, which Sam will open at the end of the episode, and we don't see it, but the money is on that this is a Captain America Falcon suit, a mix of both, I would say, probably with wings and also the blue and white, and the red, white, and blue. Maybe no, I guess he's already got the shield. But what do you think, Logan? What do you think is in there?
It's a suit. Like there's no question. There's actually somebody slowed it down because I was watching a video earlier, like kind of summarizing the different Easter eggs and stuff. And there's actually a part where if you slow it down, you can actually see like a bit of like a glimpse of white in it, and it then it goes and shows the one that he wears in the comics, and it's got that white like trim on it, which is a really nice. It's an awesome suit if you haven't seen it. So I can't wait to see what they do with it because it's obviously it's got to be what that is because there's that whole scene with him and what's the kid's name that he works with the military
Torres.
yeah, Torres, where like Torres becomes the Falcon, like his own version of Falcon, and then that's when because he still has the wings because Sam leaves him behind after he gets the blood off the shield and after John Walker basically gets smashed in by Sam and Bucky. But he's like, yeah, you just keep those wings. I don't need them. So I think that's what it was building up to, the fact that Torres is going to have the wings and maybe build his own suit and kind of be like that, kind of like Sam was to Steve, I guess. So that'll be pretty cool to watch that kind of transition where he has his own kind of like sidekick. And I like the kid that plays Torres because I think that he does a nice job of just kind of being that funny character in beside Sam. So that's what I think it is. It's got to be that suit.
Yeah, probably vibranium wings as well. There was a Disney Store toy leak of this suit, if this is what it actually looks like in the next episode. And it looks really good. So if you want to wait until it airs to see, I would probably recommend that. But I do remember it leaking, and I had saw that then. And I'm super excited to see him open that up. The boat stuff, I wasn't too big on a lot of the boat stuff, but we did get some good scenes with, them training with the shield, Bucky and Sam kind of coming to an understanding on, their roles. Like they said, they had a mutual friend who now is not around, so they're just guys, right? But there is some sort of camaraderie here and some sort of friendship here between the two of them, joking around. But Sam has a really nice conversation with Bucky about, not thinking so much about what Steve would have wanted or what Steve would think, and kind of focus on himself. And, there's probably a name in that book that needs some sort of closure and that you're the only one that can bring it to them. And this is obviously a reference to episode 1, when he was trying to talk to, one of the people that he killed, sons, right? While he was overseas and doing the Winter Soldier stuff. This guy has never been able to move on from that loss, and he wants to know, what happened. And I think this is setting up in this final episode here that we're going to see him cross that name off the list. Because, he mentions he's been trying to cross these names off the list, right? But we don't actually think that, Sam points out you weren't really making those amends. You were kind of getting revenge on some of these people who had wronged you, some of these bad guys that had made him do things, like that woman in the car where he made her car go all kind of haywire and like he brushed his hand through the window and all that kind of stuff. But that these people actually need, real closure. And that's a reference to, I'm forgetting the guy's name, but it's the old guy that he was talking with in the bar. And it's not on any of these websites I'm looking at. But Matt, your thoughts here on this conversation between Sam and Bucky while they're tossing the shield around?
I enjoyed it. I really actually I liked watching them like easily toss the shield back and forth like between the trees as well. I just thought that was like really cool to watch both of them. Like they both seem to be so well expertised in it, even though we see eventually Sam training with it and struggling with different bits and pieces. But I think it felt like a closure talk between the two of them in terms of what issues they kind of had with each other. And I think with everything we've seen in the show, especially once they started talking about the book and what he needs to do to kind of get over how he's felt being the Winter Soldier and everything that he's done in his past and people he's hurt, it just felt like Sam was kind of giving him this really good advice of what he needs to do to just get his life to where pretty much where Bucky wants it. Bucky wants to feel like, I feel like Bucky wants to feel as though his life is going to be something completely different than everything that happened as Winter Soldier, and then trying to make amends for it. Like, he wants to get past it, and he wants to do it the right way. And I really liked seeing Sam giving him the advice, whereas I don't think you get that earlier in the show when they're bickering and constantly fighting with each other about the shield and about Steve and what it really meant for the two of them. And so this felt like you finally saw the two of them realize who they really are with each other, and that they are a good team. And I like the little like conversation they had where they were like, "Oh, we're partners," or we're they kept saying like teammates and partners, and like they were walking away, and it was a nice bit of camaraderie, but also a really good scene for closure in their relationship, where now you do feel a sense of, if something happens, you're not going to have, Bucky ignoring Sam's phone calls or vice versa. Like, you're going to see them really assist each other when it's actually needed, which clearly shows it's probably going to be needed on this last episode.
Yeah, for a Lisa Kudrow reference, they will be there for, Bucky will be there for Sam, right? So let's get near the end of the episode here. We do see Sharon Carter on the phone with a random person speaking a different language, right? I will have our suspicions on who that is in a second here, but we have the Flag Smashers now at New York. They do that little ping on the phones, and they almost seem hypnotized. I'm like, are all these people like awake? They were all
zombies
kind of walking around. It was kind of strange. And then we get, she does her little, and here they come.
Damn,
they're all.
That was really good.
Thank you. They're all kind of waking up. Yes, hold on. I'm zombified now. I gotta go find her. But yeah, they're in New York. The little ping gets, Torres has been tracking these pings throughout the whole time, and he tells Sam, "This is in New York. We don't know if it's a VPN," and he's just like, "Nah, I'm coming." Right? Like, he's like, "I'm going." He opens up the briefcase. That's where we get that. We get the end credit scene of John, but we also get Carly meeting somebody, a terrorist. We've met this guy before. He was in the first episode of the show on the plane. His name is Batroc. He's also in Winter Soldier on the Lumerian Star, and Captain America fights. And he kind of seems to speak, I feel like, the same language Sharon Carter was talking to. He, in my eyes, and Wikipedia has it here too, that he has been seemingly hired by Sharon Carter. So is Sharon the power broker, Logan?
Yeah, she definitely is. I feel like, I feel like the whole broker thing, that's what a broker does. They're selling that art, and that's what she's doing. And I'm like, that's clearly a broker kind of thing, where she knows how to speak different languages. She knows the ins and outs, and brokers aren't, they've got different ways to get a hold of people, and they've got connections, and they've got these huge networks that they can work through to try to get you deals and cut you deals and stuff. And I think that she's one of those people. I think that, after they had stolen the shield and after she has to disappear, I feel like that this is a perfect setup for her just to kind of be that, I guess, that middleman that just kind of works through these different things. And I think that this definitely sets up the fact that she could be the power broker, and working in and out of different situations and getting a hold of these guys that are terrorists. And one question is, why do they always have to find these guys that look like brick walls? It seems like that guy is huge. So when I saw him, I was like, man, because you'd seen him earlier in the series, but like he was walking up, I'm like, this guy's massive. He's like a linebacker. But no, I love that scene, and I love that whole pinging of the thing, because it shows just how much these Flag Smashers are around and what could possibly happen, because there's so many of them.
Yeah, and they go into the UN, right, where they're holding this vote on the Patch Act, which we didn't get to talk about last week. But I thought it was funny that, Carly's methods of bombing one of the GRC places had actually led to the opposite of what she wanted, right? They started speeding up the normalcy again. And this has led her to then, want to do this terrorist sort of attack. One of her followers calls her out on this. This is, who was it? I'm trying to think. Dovich. Dovich tries to call her out on it and says, "What? We're working with terrorists now?" And she's like, "Well, haven't you heard? We are criminals, right? In the eyes of the law, so far." So she's going full tilt into it, and maybe at the expense of what some of her original followers had originally thought of her, right, as being this person that's going to help, and now it seems like it's just going down a totally wrong path here. And they go into the UN where they're voting, and they turn out all the lights, right? They have people on the inside. We have like a security person walk by. He's like, one world, and that person responds, one people, and they kind of like start going at it, right? They start turning off the lights and getting everything ready, and that's kind of where it ends. We're not really sure what's going to happen there. Sam is in Louisiana. He's going to have to fly like super fast to get there, right? Unless if they're not really lined up with the exact events going on here. But yeah, Matt, your thoughts here on the end of the episode with the UN and Sharon Carter, if you have anything to say about her potentially being the power broker.
I think I do think it's pretty clear that she has to be the power broker in this sense. I just think the most interesting part with that was that's the same guy that was when it comes to Carly, and like now she's working with this terrorist. That's the same guy that was like kind of questioning her when they were. That was the same guy that was questioning her a few other times in the show, isn't it? Like he's kind of slowly watched her kind of devolve into someone looking to help and just try to be the voice of these people, to all of a sudden wanting to become this crazy supervillain almost. And I just thought it was kind of interesting to see his reaction to it, because you can kind of see where she's gone from someone trying to spread this message of we're doing this for the good of the people, and we're going to be the people that they follow, and now all of a sudden she's become like, okay, we need to get this terrorist involved, and these weapons are here, and we're going to take control of this UN meeting. So I thought that was kind of interesting to watch his reaction, because it feels like it almost feels like she's losing the people who supported her at the start, and she's starting to get into that point of finding new people who are way more okay with what she's doing.
Yep.
And becoming that villain. But yeah, it was a good ending to it. I think it does. I was pretty upset because I like looked at the timing and it was like 9 minutes left, and I was like, okay, cool, 9 minutes. And then all of a sudden it ended like 30 seconds later, and I was like,
yeah,
really?
All the credits. You got all the credits going on there.
But yeah, I actually one of the cool things I saw somebody mention, this was more so with Sam training, was that when Sam was like running, he was on the right hand side. You know how like he was always or it was like, how there was always like room on the left for Sam for Steve Rogers. Yeah. And so like I thought that was kind of like I don't know if they did that on purpose, but it seemed like a cool little throwback. But I'm really excited to see.
You mean
Sam
that Steve is always on his left?
Yes.
In spirit.
I couldn't think of it. Yeah. So I thought that was just kind of cool. But if they did that on purpose, who knows? But it seems like they usually do that kind of small thing on purpose.
Did you guys notice that, like when he was running too, the nephews yell "Uncle Sam"?
Well, it is his like, name, what? But yeah, that is really good.
That's kind of cool, because it was just real subtle. He goes, "Uncle Sam," and then they would chase after him, and it was like, oh, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's great.
It was awesome watching him. Like when he's starting to like, I don't know why, it was just really awesome to see how he started to become. It's like he just started to understand the shield and how it like the actual like engineering of it and the dynamics of how it rebounds off of trees and such. It was just cool to watch him throw it and start to learn how to catch it. And I was like,
and how much power you have to put into it, because sometimes it got stuck in the tree, right? So you're like, okay, how do I do this where he throws it at a dock one point and it bounces off of that, and I'm like, that should have obliterated that dock. The physics don't really make much sense for vibranium. It's whatever you want it to be at the time, I guess. But it's, I guess, all in the wrist, right? I don't know.
Yeah. But that's what makes the suit so that's why I'm so intrigued to see this suit, because if the Wakandans made it, it's going to be like insanely, like it's going to be awesome. It's going to have, there's the way like Black Panther suit is, I think, one of the coolest suits in the entire MCU, especially like, how it absorbs.
In Civil War it looks really good too. Yeah, I don't like it as much as Black Panther.
it absorbs like the hits
Energy.
and like
Yeah.
and then it can like release it. And I love seeing those scenes in like Infinity War when he's taking hits and then all of a sudden he just like jumps up and then it just has this huge energy like around it.
Yeah, when
I'm
he
hoping
jumps
that,
back down or whatever.
yeah. So I think this suit will probably be the most impressive one that we've seen in the MCU. I just feel like it has to be.
I would say temper your expectations as somebody that's seen the
No,
league,
I'm not.
but
I'm not. My expectations are sky high right now, and I'm not going to let that go away yet.
I don't think Sky High has anything to do with the MCU. That was a Disney separate separate Disney show. We'll wrap it up here. Let's go last predictions here for the finale. Logan, we'll start with you. Any sort of predictions you have on how this shakes out? You can give us a view on all characters or a specific plot line, but your ending here for Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I think we get some kind of mention of where old Steve Rogers is because we haven't figured that out yet. Like
he's on the moon.
Yeah, I think that he's with Fury in that retirement spaceship. I think we get some kind of end scene with old Steve and kind of catching up where he is, or maybe he's talking to Sam about being the new Cap because he's finally accepted that role. So that's one thing that I'm predicting, that we see old Steve Rogers for a final time, which will be absolutely nuts and it'll break the internet. But yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to see Sam kind of step into that role as Cap and really get into a conversation with Steve or himself, just kind of accepting that spot as the new Captain America.
Matt, your thoughts here, wrapping it up, something you're either excited to see or something you think we'll see this upcoming Friday.
Oh man, there's a few different pieces. I'm really excited to see the ending battle scenes between Carly, the Flag Smashers. What's the guy's name? He's like the French guy, I guess.
Batroc.
Yeah, is it French? There's no he's French. He kind of looks French. That's why I
think he is French. Or he's like,
he's got like a French look to him.
He might be African. Which some of those countries speak French.
Maybe Croatian or Slovakia or one of those two.
Well, George St. Pierre, who plays him, is Canadian, so he could be French.
Maybe he's Canadian.
But he's Algerian. He's Algerian in the MCU. There you go.
Okay.
They speak French. Yeah.
If he's Canadian, he can't qualify for the U.S. Open Cup.
I'm really excited to see how that entire battle scene, because I just, the ending got me really excited because it feels like one of those scenarios where they're going to be, the Flag Smashers will be in control, and then all of a sudden you're going to see Sam pop in with his new suit, and it's going to be a great, I think, battle scene. Probably I would like to think it's going to be the best one in the series, and I think it's going to set up a lot for upcoming MCU stuff, especially with maybe Sam and Bucky. I hope it doesn't end with Jerry, Elaine, Kramer, and George Costanza like in prison, because like that did get me a little worried after seeing Julia Louis-Dreyfus. But like, as long as it doesn't end like that, I think we'll be okay.
I don't care what anybody says. I actually really like the finale of Seinfeld. They all deserve to be in prison. Anyway, we are wrapping up here. I think that we will see almost like a three-way battle. I feel like it has to be, right? Like, I think we will see John Walker come back in. He's going to try to avenge both. I think he's going to try to show that he is Captain America and try to take down Carly and the Flag Smashers, but he might also try to take down Sam and Bucky if they get in his way. And then I think that what I'd like to see is Bucky wrap up with Yori and tell him about his kid, and maybe ride off in the sunset with Sarah, Sam's sister. That'd be interesting. That'd be some good. Totally ship those two. And yeah, I think that would be great. And Sam with the new costume, I can't wait for that. Can't wait for the new Captain America costume. And there was rumors, or I guess in some of the initial scripts of Far From Home, we were actually supposed to see Falcon as Captain America in that movie at one point. Was in the design stage of what they were going to do with Far From Home, and I guess they instead led with more Fury, or maybe he was supposed to be in there doing something else, but that would have still fit because this would take place. This takes place 6 months after everybody comes back, and Far From Home was 8 months, so could have still worked timeline wise. But it's going to be so much better knowing what he went through to become Captain America, and that it wasn't just Steve handing him a shield and him being like, "All right, cool." Like he had to feel like he has to earn this, and I think that's really great. And he gets to learn about the history of Captain America through Isaiah Bradley, which I think, Isaiah Bradley seems to think that means that it's, Captain America is not something somebody would be associated with. But I think Sam's looking at it more of like it's part of the legacy, right? Like he says in this episode, the legacy of the shield is complicated, but there's been one of his best friends that held the shield. There's been Isaiah Bradley that's held the shield, and it's like parts of him, both sides of him and parts of America have been Captain America, and he's going to, shine that light on it because Bradley doesn't want the light on him anymore. He's going to take that spotlight, and he's going to show these people that it is his decision who Captain America is. And that is where we will end it. If you want to follow us, you can reach us on Twitter at TO Infinity Saga, Facebook.com/Infinity Saga Beyond, and email us marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com. And we will catch you next time for the series finale of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.